To the Everything Sports podcast, where we will bring you sports news and talk about all sports. I'm your host, Nick DiDonato. With me today is my dad, John. Wow, how about the NBA playoffs, Dad? We almost had 3 Game 7s on Sunday, but not quite if it wasn't for Steph Curry dropping 33 points in the second half last night.
Yeah, the NBA playoffs, nothing more exciting in American sports, Nick. And I have to say that Steph's performance in the second half last night was nothing more than stunning. First of all, it was shocking, absolutely shocking that he was scoreless in the first half. And you knew he was going to come out and do something special. You're just not going to keep a 2-time NBA MVP down like that. And boy, did he show up when he needed to.
So, breaking down the stats for the Warriors, Steph had 33, 0 in the first half, 33, 4 assists, went 9 for 20 field goal, 4 for 11 on the threes. He was scoreless in the first half. He had 23 points in the fourth quarter. That's a career high for him. Klay Thompson went 24 points with 2 assists, and he went 7 for 13 behind the line for threes. Andre Iguodala put in a good effort. He went 17 points, went 5 for 8 behind the line for 3-pointers.
It was a statement game, in my opinion, for the Warriors. They looked vulnerable earlier in the playoffs. I have to say, as someone who's not even a Warriors fan, I thought that they were extremely beatable. I don't necessarily think that Houston matches up against them as well as other teams could, but they set themselves apart last night, Nick. That performance without Kevin Durant will go down in history.
Yeah, leaving out the big story, Kevin Durant, their best player, not participating in the game with a right calf strain. They definitely stepped up. Steph stepped up in the second half. Klay stepped up in the second half too. But the Rockets stats, they're not terrible. It's James Harden, 35 points, 5 assists, 8 rebounds. He had a 11 for 25 shooting up the field goal. Chris Paul, 27 points, 6 assists, 11 rebounds. PJ Tucker played 45 minutes, 15 points, went 3 for 6 on 3 points.
Houston fans have to be absolutely distraught tonight. This was their one chance to beat the Warriors, and it just went bad. From the very beginning, Paul Pierce, I have to give him kudos. At halftime, during the halftime show on ESPN, he said, look, this game is tied. Steph Curry has no points. That's not going to keep happening. And he was absolutely right. When Steph woke up, it was lights out for Houston. And when you look at it, Nick, the Warriors were back down to the same roster that they had before Kevin Durant that actually won a couple of NBA titles. So it wasn't like they were in any dire straits, but I think all of us as sports fans were kind of hoping that it would make them vulnerable enough that we could get to Game 7.
Yeah, this is Harden's 10th loss when facing an elimination game, the most since 2008 since he came into the league. This is the 5th straight time the Warriors made the Western Conference Championship. They're 3rd behind the Lakers with 8 straight, and the Pistons with 6.
And both of those were a long time ago. Now, I've seen a lot of these teams play, and I have to say, I didn't think in modern sports with free agency, max contracts in the NBA, all the movement, that there would ever be a dynasty like we're seeing right now with the Warriors. But after making it to the Western Conference Finals that many times in a row, you have to say that we're looking at a modern-day dynasty here. And we shouldn't forget and go back to Houston. Houston had their chance. I actually think that they were booking this game before they even got onto the court. They didn't start hot. They didn't start fast, although James Harden did have a very good first quarter, but he just went silent in the second quarter. And I think they looked at each other at halftime and said, wow, one of the best players in the NBA just got shut out in the first half, and we're tied. We're in trouble.
Right, so then that leads me to ask, where do the Rockets go from here? Where do they go?
Well, that's a good question. I think they have a lot of soul searching to do over the summer. When you consider, first of all, the Carmelo Anthony experiment was a disaster, and fortunately for them, it ended early and it ended relatively cheaply. They were able to pick up the pieces and get the fourth in the conference, which, from the point that Carmelo left until last night, I would have to say that it was a mild success. But overall, they treaded water this year. They spent money. They didn't do anything different. And at the end of the day, they end up in the same position. They do not match up against the Warriors. And I have to say let's talk about James Harden for a second. You know, he was a third wheel behind Durant and Westbrook when he left OKC for Houston. So it shouldn't be a surprise for us to see him struggling as the centerpiece of the Rockets. And like I said, that franchise has some serious soul searching to do. They have a few good pieces, but in the NBA and particularly in the Western Conference, which continues to be the big brother of the conferences in the NBA, they're not making any progress. I think Mike D'Antoni is a good coach, and he probably can do more with this team. But the big question they have to ask themselves is, are they riding the right horse with James Harden? In my opinion, they're not. James is never going to be a facilitator. He's on the top of the key, so let's call him the point guard of the team. But he's not a point guard. He has very few assists. He's constantly driving and getting fouled. He gets half of his points from the foul line. And I am just not impressed with James Harden, and I don't expect the Rockets to do much more with him leading that team.
Right. Also, PJ Tucker. PJ Tucker stepped up in the playoffs.
He really stepped up, and he's one of those pieces that if you have a really good centerpiece that you could build around, but he's very good, he's not great, and he's definitely not going to help them compete against the Warriors.
Right. And that's the thing. Like James Harden, him being the centerpiece of your team, PJ Tucker being 34, PJ Tucker's salary, they get him for fairly cheap. I mean, he's a small forward that can make threes. Like in the regular season, he went 37%. Postseason, he went 45%. He stepped up in the postseason, but they needed out of everybody, including Harden, Paul, Eric Gordon. That's the thing. They needed out of everyone.
Let's think about what we just saw. All right, we saw Steph Curry, Klay Thompson. We saw Kevin Durant, who didn't even play last night. This roster went Andre Iguodala coming off the bench, Draymond Green having a spectacular series, all of the subs playing key roles for the Warriors. It goes on and on and on. And when you line these two teams up against each other, it's not even close. You've got Harden and some good pieces against practically an all-star starting five. Houston is in trouble, and they need to make some changes.
So that game, the Warriors will play on Tuesday night. The winner of Portland and Denver, which is Sunday night at 3, or Sunday evening at 3 on ABC. So, Portland plays in Denver. Denver, the Pepsi Center is a hard place to play in. Hard place. Does it surprise you that the Nuggets are a 5.5-point favorite?
No, it does not surprise me. Let's not lose sight of the fact that the Nuggets were in the number 1 seed for almost the entire season, and it was just in the last month of the season that they fell out of that seed. Number 2 is, as you mentioned, Nick, Denver is a really tough place to play. They're playing at Mile High. Portland is an entirely different environment, and hopefully they're there tonight so that they can get a little bit used to the altitude. But when you're a Denver Nugget or when you're a Denver athlete in general, you have a huge advantage when somebody comes to your home with the oxygen deprivation and all the things that go along with getting used to being at that altitude, including, and I have a lot of experience in this, I can't sleep the first night when I get to altitude. So I am not surprised that Denver is a 5.5-point favorite. It seems right to me. But it should be a great game nonetheless. I'm not going to book it for the Nuggets. Anything can happen. Portland's got some exciting players, and I guess we're going to see come tomorrow at 3:30 how this thing shakes out.
Damian Lillard would be an interesting one considering last elimination game we saw him drain one right over Paul George.
Damian Lillard's really looking like the clutch player of the NBA playoffs right now. And especially when he's at home, they're not at home. I think that's going to be a very critical component to this. I wouldn't discount at all Jokic. Jokic is an outstanding player, and you've got a great point guard on one side versus a great big man on the other. And this is going to be a very interesting game, but let's face it, they're just playing to see who gets to come in second place in the Western Conference, because the way the Warriors are stacked, the way the Warriors are playing, they must have more confidence than they've ever had coming off that game last night without Durant. This will be a great game, but it's playing for second best.
Yeah. So, key players for the Trailblazers to win this game. You have Damian Lillard. That's the obvious answer. Who else on this team do you have that needs to step up in this game?
Well, you have C.J. McCollum, who shows signs of brilliance but is not very consistent. And then we've got Rodney Hood, who can score a ton of points or he can go totally silent on you. So Lillard has got to score 30 at least. The other guys have to come up beside him. But beyond that, I'm not exactly sure who the Blazers are going to have that will really step up in Game 7. I don't even think they have experience. Obviously, they just came out of a series where they played a Game 7, and it took a heck of a shot from Damian Lillard at the end to win that game. But, as you go through the playoffs, being in the conference semifinals, when the screws are tightening down, we really don't have a body of evidence to see who could step up.
So, we got the Trailblazers key players, but besides the obvious Jokic, who's basically their guy, who do we have on the Nuggets side, the Denver side, to step up?
Well, I love the way Paul Millsap's playing right now. He's looking like a veteran that he is. He's moving the ball around. He's making big shots. So I would say Paul Millsap for sure. And Nikola Jokic is an amazing player to me. He doesn't really do anything spectacular, but he does everything really, really good. And in a game right now that does not center around big men, for him to step up and be the focal point of that team is pretty amazing. I love the way the Nuggets are playing. I think the Nuggets will win. I don't know if they'll cover 5.5, but I think they will win. And I think they'll win 2 games from the Warriors, to be honest with you. Probably 2 games back in Denver. We'll see. But at the end of the day, as I said, I don't want to be too much of a downer, but they're playing to see who's going to come in second.
I don't know. I think I might take the Blazers in a close one, just because I think Damian Lillard might be the most clutch point guard in the NBA right now.
Well, he's definitely been the most clutch point guard in the playoffs.
That's for sure.
And so here we are. There's only 6 teams left, and he's got just as good a shot as anyone to lead his team to victory. But I think at the end it's going to be the Nuggets. So we'll disagree on that one.
All right. So the other Game 7 on Sunday night at 7. This one will be on TNT. Philadelphia at Toronto. Toronto lost Game 2 to Philadelphia at home. So does it surprise you that they're favored by 6.5?
Again, no, it doesn't surprise me, because look what happened the last time these two teams played back in Toronto. It was a blowout. It wasn't even close. It wasn't close from the middle of the second quarter. I watched that game. I fell asleep 3 times. I'm really disappointed in this series, because these are the 2 teams that were supposed to step up if the Celtics didn't, and we can talk about the Celtics in a second, but these were the 2 teams that were supposed to be the young upcoming teams to step up and carry the flag for the Eastern Conference, and they just look so hot and cold that if Denver is playing for second best in the West, these guys are definitely playing for second best overall in the NBA.
Right. So then you could argue, is there any way that any of these teams could beat the Bucks? Either of these teams?
I don't think so. I think the Bucks are playing the best team basketball in the NBA right this moment, and because of that, I think the Bucks are going to be a clear favorite over either one of these teams who come out of Game 7 on Sunday. I don't think the Bucks are infallible. Giannis is a terrific player, and he's got good players around him. But the Bucks rise and fall on Giannis, so let's see if how he responds in a conference championship. I personally think he's going to be outstanding. He is the face of the NBA going forward, and no, I don't think either one of these teams are going to beat the Bucks. I don't.
So I saw something the other day on Twitter that said that Kawhi Leonard was the most valuable player in the playoffs. All the playoffs, not the East. All the playoffs.
Yeah, I would have said that up until last night. And then the second half happened with Steph Curry. And, Steph has been hot and cold. Steph is not as healthy as he's been in the past. He's definitely more healthy this year, though, than he was in the playoffs last year. I think Steph may be a little bit more valuable to his team right now than Kawhi, but Kawhi has definitely changed the culture of Toronto. Now, we're going to see because Toronto has had huge roadblocks. They don't have the Cavs, they don't have LeBron in front of them, but they're still led by Kyle Lowry. And Kyle Lowry is not somebody who's going to take them far. He's facilitating the ball. He doesn't shoot well. He's got to get the ball to Kawhi. He's got to get the ball to Kawhi before the double team comes. Hopefully that'll happen for them. I think Toronto's going to win tomorrow night, which will be a big disappointment for me because I really love the youth of the Sixers, and I think the process, as they called it, for all those years is finally showing some benefit. But we'll see. If Kawhi's not the MVP of the playoffs, he's definitely the second best. And I would have said before last night, when Curry went off in the second half, that Kawhi was the MVP of the playoffs. But after last night, and again, I'm not a big Steph Curry fan, but how can you take it away from the guy? It was unbelievable, that second half.
Now, I could hear some people getting mad at you not putting Giannis in the conversation of most valuable.
I think Giannis is the most valuable player of the league this year. So let's go back. We started off this conversation with talking about James Harden, and James Harden is apparently the front runner to be MVP of the league. Well, is this the most valuable player or is this the highest scorer? Because if it's the highest scorer, fine, give it to James Harden. If it's the most valuable player, both in the league and also for his team, how can you not give it to Giannis? And Giannis is averaging over 25 points in the playoffs, just like most of the centerpiece players for each of these teams. He's clearly the linchpin for the Bucks. I'm not sure, though, that Giannis is the MVP right now of the playoffs. But can I tell you that if they make it to the finals and somehow they win, I can't see how he wouldn't be the person that takes them to the promised land. And at that point, we're talking about a whole different ballgame. Yeah, he would be the MVP of the playoffs.
So, off the subject of most valuable player, who will be the most valuable player on Sunday night for them? Besides Kawhi, maybe like a key player. The key players for the Raptors.
Well, I already mentioned Kyle Lowry, and I do not think Kyle Lowry is the player that's going to be the next best player, assuming that Kawhi is the best. It could be Danny Green. Again, for me, Danny Green, his career to date, where he started when he was with San Antonio, and that playoff series he had against the Heat when he was a rookie. I can't remember if he was a rookie or if he was in his second year, but whatever. He was spectacular. And where he is right now, he really hasn't reached his full potential. So maybe we'll see him reach his full potential for a game tomorrow night.
So then, on the contrary, key players for the Sixers.
Well, Joel Embiid for sure. And let's hope that he doesn't get another flagrant foul, because it would be a shame that if they won the series that he would have a game suspension going into the Eastern Conference Finals. Joel can right now, he can do it all. He's hit more 3-pointers in the playoffs than I recall seeing him hit all season. And Ben Simmons is very active. You don't get a lot of 6'10" point guards. If poor Ben had a jump shot, he'd be one of the best players in the league. But with the size and the quickness and his ability to get the ball in low to, in particular, Joel, I mean, those two guys are the key to a Sixers victory. Jimmy Butler, Jamie Foxx lookalike, I call him. He had an outstanding game in Game 6, especially in the first half. So let's not discount Jimmy either. But I really think that this game is going to come down. It's going to be a close game, and it's probably going to come down to the home court, and it's going to come down to the player who's got the most playoff experience, and that's Kawhi Leonard.
So that game will be on Sunday night at 7 on TNT. So I have a little over-under game here.
Okay, I'm ready.
For the two games. I have points, and then I have one rebound guy for each game.
Okay.
I have two guys for points and one rebound guy for each game.
Sure.
So I have first game, the Portland-Denver game. I have Damian Lillard, 30 points, over, under on that.
I'm going to go the over with Lillard. He will get more than 30 points, for sure. He's averaging more than 30 points, so I think he'll hit, even if he just hits his average, he'll be slightly over 30.
Okay. Jamal Murray, 25 points, over, under on that.
I'll take the under on that one.
All right, so then the rebound guy for this game, Nikola Jokic, 15 rebounds, over, under.
Well, 15 rebounds is a lot, but he's home. It's do or die. My gut tells me to go under, but I'm going to take the over because I think Jokic is going to be huge on Sunday. So I'll take the over on rebounds.
He has a 19 rebound game, an 18 rebound game, 14 rebound game, 12.
Yeah, so 15 doesn't sound crazy. I'll take the over, like I said, but we'll see. At the 15 rebounds in a game 7 with everything on the line seems like a lot, but I'll take the over.
So that's for the Portland-Denver game. Now that's set. For the second game, the Philadelphia-Toronto game, our first guy is Jimmy Butler, 27 points. Your Jamie Foxx lookalike.
I love Jimmy Butler. I do not think he's getting 27 points up in Toronto in that atmosphere in a Game 7. So I'll take the under with Jimmy on 27. He's probably good for 24 to 26, and I know that sounds like I'm being very exact, but 27 is a lot of points for him to score on Sunday.
So then, of course, I got to bring my guy Kawhi the Claw Leonard in. 35 points, over, under on that.
Oh, 35 is a lot, Nick. I love Kawhi. I think he's going to be big. I do not. I'm going to take the under on Kawhi and 35 points.
He's had some big scoring games in this series, though.
Yeah, well, give me the numbers.
He's had 39, 35, 33, 21, 29. That's all his games.
Yeah. So, Kawhi's not a spring chicken anymore. Kawhi is now in deep into the playoffs. I'm taking the under on 35, and hopefully I'm wrong because I love Kawhi, and I don't want to see Toronto win this series, but I think they are going to win this series, and but I don't think he's getting 35.
And in Game 1, he had 45.
It's not Game 1, son. It's Game 7.
All right, so last guy for rebounds, Joel Embiid, 10 rebounds.
Over, and I'm going way over on this. I think Joel Embiid is going to have a really good night. I think this is going to be a great game. I mean, obviously it's a great matchup because they're in Game 7. Joel's going to have a big night, and I think that he may have 10 rebounds, by the end of the third quarter.
So his rebounding games, they go 6, 10, 8, 6, 12. I think he'll have a good game with rebounds.
Yeah. Depends on if he's able to get down deep, you know. If he's taking jump shots or three-pointers, then he'll have less rebounds. If the game ends up where he's driving or he's getting the ball in deep, he'll be putting second chancers up, and I like him to get more than 10. I'll stick with my over, and I'll go one more. I'll give you a prediction. So I'll say that he's going to get 14 rebounds in this game, which is a lot for him. I know it because he doesn't play under the basket all the time, but I'm going to go with 14 rebounds. Now, that may be just be saying I think the Sixers are going to miss a lot of shots and he'll have a lot of second chancers. I'm not exactly sure, but I have a great feeling for Joel, and I hope he does well.
All right, well, things to watch. Obviously, Sunday, Portland at Denver. That starts at 3:30. That's on ABC. The next Game 7 is Philadelphia at Toronto. That's at 7 on TNT. So then Monday night, St. Louis Blues play in San Jose at 8 on the NBC Sports Network. So we hope you guys enjoyed the show as much as we enjoyed bringing it to you. If you like us, subscribe to our YouTube channel, Everything Sports, and drop us a like. We'd love to hear from you. Have a nice evening.
See ya.